Hey, what's up, everybody? I know it's been a little while since I've made a video, or at least one specifically about NIU athletics, NIU football, anything pertaining to NIU. I know recently the big thing is we got an update on how much it is NIU will be bringing in this change from the Mid-American Conference, the MAC, to the Mountain West. A lot of folks, I get it. There was a lot of folks who, I don't want to say they weren't believers, but there was a lot of skepticism, a lot of disbelief, just a lot of things that were just like, this ain't worth it. What are we doing? We've lost the plot. Why? Why would we move to the Mountain West? I said it. It would be financially a great move for us. Staying in the MAC is like you're just on you're on a boat. You're on a ship that it's not that it's sinking, but it's not moving. Right? You're going out to sea every day, and y'all are bringing back whatever little haul you're bringing back, right? Where you see everybody else around you may have been making upgrades to their boats, gotten bigger boats over time, and they're just doing far better. The MAC is the only conference I can think of, if we were being real honest, right? If we're looking at the other group of conferences, right? If we're talking about Conference USA, if we're looking at the Sun Belt, if we're looking at the American, Mountain West, PAC, well now PAC, and then the MAC. If these are the six conferences that essentially are considered the group of six, right? Because these aren't considered power conferences or autonomous, conferences and whatnot. All these conferences have made some sort of upgrade. Conference USA, in all honesty, is probably a more fun conference than the MAC is. Sun Belt, a more fun conference than the MAC is. And then, if I'm being honest, like, you would have to kind of consider those the bottom three, right? And then you had the American, and you had the Mountain West. Now that we have this situation with the PAC going on, you can now still consider the MAC, Sun Belt, and Conference USA potentially the bottom three, or maybe it's kind of more of like a bottom two between the MAC, Conference USA, and then you kind of have the middle, which some people might be like, oh, well, that's now Sun Belt and the Mountain West. And then for the most part, right, some folks might be like, oh, well, now you have the PAC and the American, right? And I would still give the edge to the American, right? The PAC is only going to have one school that's truly competitive in football, to the point where, we're talking about potential college football playoff berth, and that's Boise State. How do we know that? Because they just did it. Boise State is one of the best FBS programs over the last 20 years. The only thing Boise State has had going against it is location and academics, right? If you look into the history, it's just a Wikipedia search. Right, Boise State, I believe, began as like a junior college or a community college, right? So they got a ways to go, but actually they have developed their academics over time. So the standards are up there. Like I said, location is the only thing that Boise State has truly had going against it. Had Boise been, in Oregon or Washington State, something like that, right? They probably are a power conference school. right? At one point, they were kind of in the mix, right? If you do some simple Googling, do some research, right? There was a point in time where we almost had Boise State. I want to say San Diego State. I want to say BYU, right? There were a couple Western schools that were really close to becoming members of the Big East. And that would have been the first true realignment that's kind of more relatable to what it is we're seeing happen right now, where you have schools that are completely kind of ditching, geography and regionality. And they're like, we got to survive. We can't just purely go based on, right, what are the surrounding states, and we're only going to align with that, right? When West Virginia joined the Big 12, I was like, what? Right, Missouri joining the SEC. That wasn't as big of a what, but it's definitely more of like a, if you look at all the other schools there, right, seems slightly out of place. But when you think about the state of Missouri, kind of, sort of, it's like, I can see it. If there was a school that you could align with the SEC that's not necessarily in the proper South, it would be Missouri, right? So it makes some sense. But it's like, we've seen it. We've seen it, right? If we look at the Big Ten, when the Big Ten added Maryland and Rutgers, right, it wasn't completely left field, but for the most part, they were expanding a bit more. If Penn State wasn't already there, it would maybe feel like a complete, like, why are we adding them? But, right, this is the world today. Like I said, you have USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon in the Big Ten. You have schools, we're talking about 4 straight up West Coast schools. Some of the biggest brands out West are in the Big Ten. Some doing better than others. It's a complete toss-up. USC isn't looking like the USC of old. We'll see what happens. Maybe this is just what USC is now. But they're USC. The brand is strong. It's USC. This is just what sports are. NIU joining the Mountain West. I get it. There's a lot of criticism, a lot of skepticism, a lot of like, that doesn't make sense. But we only view it that way because we're viewing, I guess you would kind of consider like mid-major programs, right? If this was a power conference move, probably nobody would be viewing it that way, right? You look at the Big 12, they added Cincinnati, Houston, Southern Florida, and BYU. Right, we're talking about 4 schools. Essentially, the only one that technically, kind of fits in is Houston. And then you could even say BYU. But when you look at Cincinnati and Central Florida, Central Florida, UCF, not USF, UCF, right? They kind of seem like the odd men out. But nobody batted an eye. Nobody was like, that's just odd. That's right. Because it's a different situation. So why couldn't a conference like the Mountain West, who's currently in their battle against the Pac, because they got literally 5 of their schools poached, they had to pick a lane and trust the process and make some sort of rebuild happen. I said all of this. The Mountain West is going the media rights route. They're going the media rights deal route. It seems like, at least for the most part, whatever the deal's going to be, it's not going to be anything super crazy. But whatever the deal's going to be, it is more than lucrative enough for NIU. And you have to realize, It has been put out there. FOIA request, so Freedom of Information Act, I believe, request. And they were able to get this information. I want to say it was On3 Sports, I believe it's called, or One. I'm not sure if that's what they're trying to, I just always call them On3 or whatever they are. Right? They get this information. And it's good, detailed info. Like, it's pretty straight up. I'm like, this pretty much puts it out there what it is that's going on. 34 million bucks over a 6-year span. 34 million over 6 years. That is significantly more than NIU has ever seen being in the MAC. And I believe that was NIU in the MAC as a full member. Let that part sink in. As a full member in the MAC, NIU, let's say on a good day, right, was getting $1 million check from the conference. You're now telling me that over a span of 6 years in the Mountain West, a rebuilt Mountain West, one that's literally losing pretty much the best mid-major football program in all of the land. They're losing Boise State. You're losing Fresno. You're losing San Diego State. You're losing Utah State and Colorado. You're losing 5 schools. One of them is a heavy hitter. San Diego State is another school that for years now has been on the bubble to be in a power conference. So you're losing that value as well. Fresno, I would say, out of those 5, Fresno State likely 3rd most valuable, unless you want to try to say it's Colorado State or Utah State. I consider Fresno State the 3rd most valuable out of those 5. And then we got Colorado State and we got Utah State. You're losing your conference champs. That's the funny part. I want to say each one of the 5 schools that are leaving the conference have won the conference. At least in football, for sure. Right? I'm not going to look at all other sports. But seeing that football is king, they've won a conference championship. Each one of them has won a conference championship at least once in football in that conference. You're losing all 5 of them. Every school come 2026, you have the pretty interesting data point that you can sit there and be like, it is for a fact. At the end of the 2026 season, there will be a first-time Mountain West Conference champion being crowned, because all the schools involved in that conference have never won the conference. So this could be very much the first time UNLV wins the Mountain West. This could be the first time Air Force wins the Mountain West. It could be the first time San Jose State wins the Mountain West. NIU could come in as a brand new member and win the Mountain West. All possibilities. But like I was saying, the Mountain West, Gloria Nevarez, the Commissioner Gloria Nevarez, they played the media rights game. It was clear as day what was going on. We're losing schools. We have to try to add based on the media market. Because guess what? They're not a power conference, right? Most people will tell you with power conferences, the schools involved, those games, right? Those games are automatically getting millions of views. For the most part, they're automatically going to get millions of views over the course of the season. For them, it ain't about the media market. It's the brand. U of I, Urbana-Champaign, by default, they get everything in the state of Illinois. They don't have to do a whole lot of anything, and they're going to get the views Saturday. They just are. It's the brand. This is the big state school. NIU, on the other hand, right, we have to rely on, guess what, our value, for the simple fact that we are considered a part of the Chicago media market. DeKalb, Illinois is considered a part of the Chicago media market. It's a blessing. Because of that, Northern Illinois University, our football program, our sports, things like that, marketable. Marketable. You can now take potentially viewers that you just might not typically get, and you're combining markets and viewers and numbers, and that is what the Mountain West is going to get from NIU. I can't remember the name of the channel that made that video, but there's that video that it kind of did that deep dive, right? Here's NIU joining the Mountain West. What is NIU bringing to the Mountain West in terms of viewership? And it straight up, flat out was like, NIU has been your best performer when it comes to viewership over the last 20 something years. Hands down. Hands down. Whenever NIU has ever had a chance to be prime time, or, just even if it's ESPN2, whenever we get the chance, NIU viewership numbers are up there compared to everybody else in the conference. And I love that how that video showed the breakdown, because it showed how, like, some other schools, it made their numbers seem essentially inflated, because your numbers weren't up because everybody was watching you, Ball State. Your numbers were up because you were playing NIU, and the Chicagoland area was turning TVs on. That's why the numbers were up, right? So it was beautiful having that data and being like, this is how you sell and market the school. It's sad that even today, which is like, you know what, I get it, we're now leaving the MAC. The MAC has absolutely zero reason to put NIU in any sort of primetime game, right? We might be on ESPN Plus the whole rest of the year. They could care less. But Mountain West, if they're smart, you're going to make sure some way, somehow, you're getting your NIU matchup on a channel that is accessible. Fox Sports 2, if it has, right? As long as it's a channel that somebody can turn on. We're not talking about you need some sort of subscription, a web stream, something like that. We're talking about the Mountain West should be doing the whatever they can to get NIU games televised, because you want to bring in that viewership. You want the media partners to be like, oh yeah, they weren't joking. NIU games, people in Chicago, they are turning on TVs. The craziest part about it is all you need is maybe 3%. 3% of the Chicagoland area to turn on the NIU game, and you are instantly at hundreds of thousands. God forbid, for some odd reason, something happened and 50% of the Chicagoland area decided to turn on an NIU game. The viewership would be insane. We're talking about millions of viewers. If we even just got anywhere near close to some 50%, that means millions of people would be watching. So NIU's marketability is what led to that move. It's the reason why they added, the conference added UTEP, right? You wanted to get back into Texas, right? Remember, they did go after Texas State to a degree. It wasn't just oh, well, we would just want UTEP. Texas State, we want you too. UTEP, we'll take UTEP and we'll take Texas State. Texas State turned them down. Texas State honestly got lucky, just being straight up. They got lucky. They waited things out. Things fell apart on the end for the Pac, and that led to an invite for Texas State. Texas State was not plan A, B, or C for the Pacific Athletic Conference. Texas State, it was not who they wanted. It's just how things played out. So lucky them, congrats to them. It is what it is. But the Mountain West was playing the media market game. The Pac has been playing more of kind of like the brand game. They're trying to play the brand game, right? And they had a huge, grandiose plan in specific schools that they wanted to add, and it backfired. Mountain West, we're going to add NIU. Let's get a Texas representation. We're going to add UTEP, El Paso. We're going to add Grand Canyon University. We got Phoenix right there. We're going to add UC Davis, right? Media market game is being played. By adding UC Davis, you tap into Sacramento. And guess what? Here's the crazy part. Yes, you have Sacramento State, and there's all the buzz, no pun intended, all the buzz around Sacramento State. But UC Davis is a top academic institution. So UC Davis is the more prestigious school between UC Davis and Sacramento State. UC Davis is who got the invite. There was a reason for that. That was strategic. That was strategic. That is a top academic institution in the United States of America. It wasn't just about, do we need to be smack dab in Sacramento? Or do we kind of invest and think about this one? That's why they went with UC Davis. In the perfect world, the Mountain West would be doing whatever they could to maybe get St. Mary's. I keep hearing St. Mary's potentially going to the Pac. But here's the crazy part to me. The fact that the Pac hasn't reeled in St. Mary's. You got Gonzaga. How have you not gotten St. Mary's? What? If the Mountain West magically all of a sudden finds a way to snag St. Mary's, you have to look at the Mountain West a lot differently. You gotta look at them a little different now. Because guess what? Pac, yes, y'all got a decent, pretty solid basketball conference. Well, the Mountain West, looking at who all's left over and looking at new additions, well, they got a pretty solid basketball conference too. If you had New Mexico, Grand Canyon, St. Mary's, I want to say UTEP is a little better at basketball than they are football. I'm not saying UTEP has been, an NCAA tournament contender, right? But I think they're a little better at basketball than they are football for the most part. I guess most people can kind of agree with. Yeah. I still think I'm still going after St. Mary's if I could. I'd be like, yo, Pac is wasting their time. They're taking too long. What number can get the job done? All right, we can't necessarily give you a full piece of the pie, but we can give you a little more than what you'd be expecting to get you in here as a basically probably all sports except for football because they don't have football. So, yeah. But NIU is a huge deal for them. And here's the crazy part. For the most part, right, we have NIU wrestling is actually joining the Pac. So it's like, damn, like as much as I want to hate the Pac, and I actually have no hate for them, but as much as I want to be like, well, no, if our football's in Mountain West, we're Mountain West. But that's not the reality. Wrestling is joining the pack. Gymnastics is joining Mountain West. And then the rest of our sports, Horizon League. So you have to take into account, there's another check that will be coming in from the Horizon League. It won't be a ton of money, right? It's not going to be millions of dollars. It'll more than likely, I would think, be less than what we were getting in the MAC. But just that bit of money alone combined with the football money should then increase that annual number we got coming in. I would say that it should probably put us closer to $6 million annually, right? Because joining the Mountain West as a football only member, and this was right information that was divulged in the FOIA request, right? NIU $34 million over 6 years. You do the math on that, you're essentially I think it was like 5.7 mil per year, 5.6 million on average. Right. We're coming from a place where I think NIU being nice was bringing in $1 million a year. We're going from 1 million a year to now 5.6 just from being a football only member. You can't be a part of this fan base and then still be sitting here like, oh, that's a horrible move. Why would they do that? That doesn't make sense. Conference game wise, there will be 8 conference games, which is solid. 8 conference games. 4 will be away, meaning that's 4 flights you have to account for. 4 flights you have to account for. 4 will be away. 4 flights you have to account for. We have our non-conference games. Now, NIU already, these things are already scheduled. You can go look them up. All right, so we already know. It's just like how a ton of folks knew, I think years ago about, the Notre Dame game. They were saving up their money. They were waiting. We were waiting. Right? We knew about the Notre Dame game. It wasn't a last second thing. This had been scheduled. This had been agreed upon. But we have to remember, NIU ain't playing an SEC, Big Ten, ACC, or Big 12 school without getting paid. Like, we're not doing that for the love of the game. We're not doing that for fun. If NIU is traveling to one of these big schools to play them, win or lose, they're getting paid in the process. So travel for that game, you wouldn't even really worry about it in a sense when you're thinking financials. The game itself, playing that game itself, covers travel and then some. Let that sink in. When NIU played Notre Dame, that wasn't a flight. That was a bus ride. That was a bus ride to collect a nice check and the biggest win in history. NIU came out like thieves in the night because we got paid like kings for that game. Travel was nothing. We could have Ubered the team to that damn game. NIU plays Maryland, right? Yes, that's a flight to Maryland. That's a flight. But Maryland, 99% chance, I'm pretty sure, paid us, right? NIU goes to play Mississippi State, 99.9% chance, I'm pretty sure, they paid us. Holy Cross came to play us. Fairly certain we paid Holy Cross, right? San Diego State, they came to play us. we paid them. Funnily enough, when we go play San Diego State again in San Diego, they're going to pay us. It just kind of is going both ways around. But NIU, when we play any power conference team, rest knowing the compensation is there. They're going to get paid for that game, win or lose. They're getting paid. So we don't got to worry about that one. NIU is coming up in this situation. NIU is coming up in this situation. Easily. You have to worry about 4 flights, with the most expensive one being Hawaii every other year. And even then, I'm pretty sure there's something to that particular one. Like, there's a way to, the money works a certain way. But other than that, these flights aren't going to be as super crazy as everybody thinks, right? These flights can all be covered, right? Charter flights, right? For the whole team. We can cover all of that. I'm fairly certain, right? The flights, and then also shipping off of our equipment, right? You put that in a truck. The truck drives, right? They leave before the team, clearly, right? I think for 4 games, all of that can and will be covered for less than $1 million. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. NIU, hopefully, people now see NIU joining the Mountain West. Huge win. Hands down. Huge win. Don't worry about this season. As much as it pisses me off too, that a team that could and should potentially be 3-1 is right now 1-3. My goal, my thing is, let's salvage this. Let's just get to bowl eligibility. Let's get to 6-6. Let's get to 6 wins. And then we have this offense under our belt. We have this freshman class that came in, guys that are redshirted. They've learned the system, this, that, the other, yada, yada, yada. All these things. And we go into the Mountain West guns a-blazing. That's how I'm looking at this. I'm now even more excited to be in the Mountain West. I'm almost like, I kind of almost don't even care what happens in the MAC. If we manage to still run the table and magically end up in the MAC championship, that's the cherry on top. But whatever this season is going to be, like I said, we know it started a certain way. It is what it is. We need to start looking toward the future and prepping for that. Because for the first time ever, NIU has a decent amount of money coming their way. They actually do. So maybe some of this money can be used potentially, let's see how things go, to retain talent, to keep talent. Right? If we lose for some odd reason, I don't want to manifest this, I don't want to say this, but if we lose our quarterbacks, if Host is gone, Jalen Macon's gone, Brady Davison gets poached, and now we're sitting here like, bruh, we're down bad. NIU should now technically have the funds to go look in that portal and reel somebody in. I'm not saying the biggest name in earth, but we should be able to go get a veteran quarterback who maybe has a year or 2 of eligibility left and is just like, I can come in, we can ball out. Like, I'm good to go. Just point me in the direction, coach. That's the type of money we'll have coming in where we can do those things. You have to understand and realize that's how these Mountain West schools have been operating for a little while now. Right? Do they deal with the same things that we deal with? Yes, hands down. I'm not saying that they had the ridiculous type of money where their squads are untouchable. No. No. That is not the case. But do I believe that they have some sort of funds, some sort of money to be able to make some sort of moves? Yes, I believe that's how they've been doing things. Does a running back like Ashton Genty stay in Boise, Idaho, if he's not getting something? Right? I'm not putting that. I don't know exactly why Ashton Genty was right, but I'm sure there were other schools that probably were like, hey, come on over to USC, come on over to Oregon State, come on over to Washington, come on over to Oklahoma State. We see the potential. We can put you in the spotlight and get you to the pros. Plus, slides the check across the table. Not only could we get you to the NFL, we'll make sure that this next season you're living lavish. He stayed in Boise. The dude should have won the Heisman. But best believe there was some sort of form of money. There was some sort of form of something. Like, don't think that these players ain't getting paid. Like, you have to think. Here's the dead giveaway. UNLV has a roster full of transfer portal talent, talking about former 5-star, 4-star guys, transfer portal. You think these dudes went to UNLV just to finish off their college careers? You think they went to UNLV just because of the head coach? Nah. There's a check involved. Like, guys are getting paid. They're getting paid. Does it hurt? Or does it make it easier when you got the NIL conglomerates or whatever you call them? Yeah, that helps a whole lot too. Because for some, like, I mean, all it takes is a couple dudes to hit the lotto, and you can now bankroll your your favorite football team, right? That's basically how it works. I mean, you can hit the lottery tomorrow and can be like, yo, I'm a billionaire now. I'll throw NIU 75 mil of NIL money. We would have a damn near national championship squad overnight if NIU had $75 million all of a sudden to play with. We could fill every position with top talent, and we should be able to roll through whatever conference we're in. So money is involved. This now puts NIU in a situation where it's like, okay, we can maybe actually get some guys in if needed. We can maybe actually get some guys to stay if needed. We can actually maybe fight back when whatever school tries to come and poach. You know? This season continues on. Telly Johnson, he's putting together his highlight tape. Right, let's say this season continues on. We do get bowl eligibility. We finish with another 7-win season. Right, Telly has some great games, multiple 100-yard rushing games. Javon Wright, I want to say you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about him getting poached. I think he's more of like on that senior end. So I think it's more of a situation of like, I think this might be his last season. Maybe he has one more, but I'm pretty sure he's a senior. I think this is his last year of eligibility. But Telly, on the other hand, that dude very much could get poached, right? If the next 8 games he starts showing out, very easily could you see somebody coming in and trying to get him. We have some money, hopefully now, in the coffers that we can be like, Telly, just stay put. You know you're the guy. Stay put. Trust the process. You know you're the guy. You worked your butt off. We're going to the Mountain West. You're now going to be elevated on a higher stage. Stick through this next season. After that, you're not rocking with us. You're not feeling it. You have our blessing. You're trying to go pro. You're trying to get yourself, the best case scenario situation. We get it. But just stick it out. Slides the check on the table. So you have to realize, we got to look at it like that. Like, this is a come up. It's a come up for athletics, the university, all of those things. This is one of those things, and this is what I've said a few times. I'm like, yo, NIU, we got to make some things happen. We got to make it shake. We got to make some things happen over the next 6 years, because I call it the big shift. It might be one of the last final shifts, because then after that, college football is going to look like whatever it looks like. And here's my prediction. I think the ACC is going to get poached by the Big Ten and the SEC. They're going to take the schools they want. But I think because the ACC has such a strong relationship with Notre Dame, well, guess what? Even with Notre Dame not being a football member of the ACC, Notre Dame has a nice chunk of their schedule is against ACC schools. And as long as that continues to be the case, guess what? The media partners are going to continue to bankroll the ACC. It will give Notre Dame more power. Surprisingly. Like, Notre Dame is going to be like, oh, yeah, Florida State and Clemson and them are gone. I'm the captain now. I'm running this show. Notre Dame is going to keep the ACC alive, and they're going to go take whoever they want from the Big 12. They're going to go get who they want from the Big 12. Now, keep in mind, the ACC is a strong academic conference. So even though you would think like, oh, yeah, go get West Virginia, like that seems like a common sense addition, they just might not. Because I think West Virginia might rank as one of the lowest academically in the Big 12. You have a higher chance of seeing something like BYU or Colorado, or like there's a couple of schools that academically are pretty decent in the Big 12. Those schools will get likely the priority additions by the ACC. You could still also potentially see the ACC add Tulane, maybe. It could happen. If Rice makes a huge commitment, Rice very well much could be an ACC addition, because everything about Rice aligns with kind of what the ACC is. Like I said, academics are key to them. Stanford and Cal alone will try to block schools that don't meet a certain level of academic standards. Rice, they'd invite Rice in a heartbeat, but Rice athletics needs to improve. It all depends on what the university cares about. We've seen that plenty of times. The people who know history, that the University of Chicago was the original Big Ten founding member. And now we look today, and it's like the Big Ten is one of the biggest things in the world. In Chicago State, not Chicago State, but University of Chicago, Well, they made their decision. They wanted to be one of the best academic institutions in the world. So it is what it is. It is what it is. But I think the ACC will get poached by the Big Ten and the SEC. ACC will then rebuild using Big 12 schools. And then guess what? The Big 12 will kind of have to backfill using the Boise States of the world, San Diego State, maybe Washington, Oregon State. They might just get added because guess what? They already have all the facilities. Like, why not? So it's like they'll probably get an addition just because, right? But NIU has to do everything in their power to set themselves up to potentially get a blessing, maybe some sort of invite. Because after that, the Big 12, SEC, ACC, Big 10 have absolutely no reason to add any other school ever again. They have no reason to open that door. What we will see is the one last time that door might get opened and some schools might get a chance. NIU has to do whatever they possibly can to set themselves up to get a shot, get an opportunity. So, like I said, NIU, this move, AD Frazier, football, gymnastics, Mountain West, wrestling, PAC, everybody else, Horizon League. It sounds crazy, but this man really truly set us up for next steps. Don't think that this is it. He's trying to make a play, trying to put us in the right spot, because worst case scenario, Big 12 invite don't happen, some other openings will appear, and NIU could potentially move themselves into a certain spot. Will we ever be in a power conference? Like I said, that door might be shut. That dream will be gone. But could we be in a conference getting an even better payout than what we're looking at right now? Right? Because we elevated, or conferences merged, or who knows what. He's setting us up for best potential outcome. But staying in the MAC, it wasn't going to happen. Just being straight up. Peace.